Under the weight of empire and in a world that wants to monetize everything, we have to find little ways to get away with something every day. And that can look a lot of different ways.
Welcome to Created Creative. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ruth.
Tell me everything about graduation, birthday, weekend.
We had so much going on. Graduation. It was very nice. His class had about 240 people in it. Not super huge, but
Big enough.
yeah, a lot bigger than Owen graduated from Lake Park Audubon, and that was 38.
You know everyone.
Yeah, they kept it to an hour and a half, and Jesse was in the choir that sang a couple pieces, so that was really nice. And then the immediate family went out to eat, and then he will have his party in June.
And
So
it's a recital?
it's a recital party.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then the next day it was my birthday, and that was a perfect day. The weather was perfect, and went to yoga, and I did go shopping and bought myself some clothes. I don't do that very often, so it was,
Yay.
yeah. And then we had the first outdoor service at the church on Sunday, and the weather was great for that too. Everything went well.
I
But
love that.
yeah, at my church, they voted on their next pastor.
Oh, so you
And
might be
so-
done soon.
Yeah.
Your
and
interim.
so the next pastor will probably be starting August 1st. So the next interim that I've been talking to, listen to this, is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit further away. And so I said, it'd be really nice if there was a place that I could stay. And I'm picturing someone's house for
Yeah.
snowbirds or something,
Yeah.
But turns out they are so nice. They're getting like a benefactor to pay for an apartment that I can,
It's just yours.
that's just mine. Yeah,
And
that
there'll
I could-
be some furniture?
yeah, usually this person Airbnbs this place.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
I know. Isn't that just so thoughtful? And so I'll have a place that I can
That
stay for a few
is-
days and then come back.
See, there's always a way.
Right. When you
You gotta
ask.
ask people. And there are people that are like, I would love to help. I just didn't know how.
That's why I wanted to tell you that, because it goes back to so much of what we talk about, how you need to
Gotta
ask.
ask.
I'm interested to hear your stories.
Preschool graduation.
No, really?
The cutest thing ever. It wasn't like caps
Aw.
and gowns. This is just the twice a week theater school,
Okay.
but very on brand for them. It's called Treasure Trunk. And then the kids had all decorated their own treasure trunks to take
Very
home at the
nice.
end. And she got an award
Yeah.
for sharing her musical gifts and generous heart.
No.
But I
that's
like
our
that they knew the
Lucy.
kids so well. It was such specific awards.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So, yeah, Meta.
Meta.
Today's guest.
Today's
It's
guest.
like we planted her and we did not.
Yeah.
She was talking about the artist way and we did not even set it up.
Mm-hmm.
She just
I know.
loves it that much. And we are doing the artist way this summer.
And that just goes to show the reason we're doing The Artist's Way is because it's the book that's been talked about the most, I think, in this
Mhm.
since we started this. And our guest today just proved that point because she's
She
just
brought it
started
up.
talking about it.
Unprompted. So join us starting next week in all the intros. We're going to have some kind of report.
We're starting the 16th. So people still have a week.
There's time. Go
To
get your book.
Go get your book
A local independent bookseller
and get a journal that you are excited to write in.
and an excellent pen.
Yeah. And then I look forward to talking with you, Dawn, in the coming weeks about how it's going for you. I think it's going to be a really good experience. There's so many things that I'm excited to work on with this. So
Good.
and I know of several people who are joining us for sure.
So we'll talk about it at our creative container, which is for members of our Patreon. Everyone sign up for our Patreon. It's
Yes.
hardly any money at all.
Yeah. And that'll be on June 26th. Yes.
In the evening.
7 p.m. Central. Yeah. It'll be just a great summer of creativity.
Yes. And as Meta says, being creative is like an act of resistance. Find your little spots.
Yeah. So enjoy Meta Herrick Carlson. It's nice to see you.
You too. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
I'm so glad you could be with us today and for the chance to actually talk to you a little bit. I've only met you in person one
Yes,
time,
we
really
just
quickly.
kind of had a 3-minute conversation. So this is awesome.
Yes.
Okay,
And-
so catch me up. How do you know each other for 3 minutes?
We had met through Consecrate, but then at the Festival of Homiletics, we were
Okay.
both there. And actually, Dawn was there too. But
But I was
But-
in the weird place that nobody went to see the vendors because I registered
There's
late. It's
always
my
the sad vendor room.
Yeah, but you know, I made the best friends with the other vendors because you're just together all day with no one coming
All
by.
day.
So they were
Oh my
lovely
gosh.
people.
yes. So have you gone to that recently, to the Festival of Homiletics?
I haven't lately, even when the last time I was in Minneapolis, I was just there in person for one day because I was helping Brad Frosley with something. But I love taking the whole week off for continuing ed and just live streaming stuff from my hammock. That week is always the most beautiful week in my backyard.
Yeah.
I set up lunch dates with colleagues and friends and hermit out a little.
Yeah.
I'm not a very good group learner. In a setting like that, I will miss sessions. I will be out in the hallway. I will be talking to people. Like, I'll miss the meat. So I have to put myself in a timeout to make sure that I'm really going to get the yummy stuff. And I do feel like in the Twin Cities, it's an embarrassment of riches with colleagues nearby. I don't need to go to the thing to see people in the same way others might.
Yeah.
So
Where in the Twin Cities are you?
I am in the Longfellow neighborhood in South Minneapolis.
The actual
And I'm in
metro
my
area.
writing shed right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we need to know everything about that.
I know. There's so many things. Yeah.
Well, first of all, who are you? Why are you here? Short bio.
Short bio. My name is Meta Herrick Carlson, and I am a pastor and poet living in South Minneapolis. And I love being adjacent to or dabbling near the challenges of institutional church and also not being in a position where it keeps me up at night because I don't have gifts for leading in the institutional church for this moment in its story. And I know that about myself. So I like to play on the edges. I like to create content that is plain spoken and accessible and inclusive. I'm a word person.
So right now you write, and do you have a call at Bethlehem?
do.
And so,
Yep, I have a call at Bethlehem Lutheran Church Twin Cities, which until almost 10 years ago, that was two separate ELCA congregations about 11 miles apart. Bethlehem Lutheran Church in South Minneapolis and Minnetonka Lutheran Church in Minnetonka, a second 2.5 ring suburb. And this is my third call. My first call, I was an associate. My second call, I was solo. And then I had all three of my kids were really little when I was solo. And I just thought, I want them to have pastors who aren't me. I just know that I could be a lead pastor. And also, I would not have a lot of creative juices to fire with and play with if I was on the hook for managing decline in butts and seats. And budgets.
yes.
Some of that is obviously really important to what I do as the Minnetonka campus pastor. So now we're one church with multiple expressions and locations. And I am the campus pastor at the little one. It's a redevelopment role. It's all the best things about being solo and none of the worst things. Yeah, I get to be on a team with more resources and colleagues, but I also get to make some decisions for the sake of my context. And we super don't have it figured out. It's still really messy and tricky. We have not been as storied into the death and resurrection as we could have been. And so that's tricky in ways it doesn't necessarily have to be, but is 10 years in. I came on board 8 years ago because I just cared. I was interested that a really large congregation was interested in playing with and dying and rising with a very small congregation. The fact that they would say, we're going to close, reopen, and be accepted as a new congregation at Synod Assembly together. I wanted to make sure that Bethlehem tried that with their whole hearts. And I still don't know if we have. And so even if we don't succeed or we don't figure out everything that we wanted to figure out, if we try it with our whole hearts, we have gifts to offer the wider church. How to play together and how to belong to each other. So I've been full-time for my first 7.5 years. And then I helped Church Anew of St. Andrew Lutheran Church in Eden Prairie write a grant to the Lilly Foundation for a different kind of coaching model for clergy and congregational coaching. And we got it. And so then I went to quarter time with Church Anew in October and 3/4 time at Bethlehem. And I'm stewarding this coaching experiment for 3 years. So playing with other congregations too, which is my jam.
Love it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So then Brad Frosley, did you work with him at one point?
We were both in the Central Conference of Minneapolis. I was at Zion on 33rd and Pillsbury, and he was at Calvary on 39th in Chicago. So
Okay.
that's how I met Brad.
I ask about Brad because he's from my hometown.
Is he
There's-
really?
Yeah, there's two of us, two pastors
Wow.
from my town. And
Which is not a huge town.
Yeah, we went to high school together. We were in speech together and all the things. Like in a small town, you do all the things together.
I can totally picture that.
Wow. Okay. So for our viewers who are listening, as Meta said, she's sitting in her writing shed. So tell us about this beautiful space.
Yeah, do you want a little tour?
Yes.
We do want a tour, and we want to know why and how.
Yeah.
I'm sort of obsessed with it. So my kids are now 11, 11, and 14, but this used to be their playhouse that my spouse built. So I'm going to take you outside real quick.
Okay.
It looks like this. Isn't
Oh.
it so cute? It's like, my hammock's right there. That's very
Uh-huh.
on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 8x8. It's just this little like nook of a space. I put wallpaper up because it looked like I was being held against my will on Zoom calls.
Yeah.
The kids have a little like reading loft
Nice.
up there. They still wanted to have some skin in the game. And this is my home office.
Nice.
So we boosted our Wi-Fi so I can do video calls from out here, and I read and write and create
Yes.
and paint by number and just
Get that
hang out.
sense of getting into your zone with nobody
Yeah.
breaking in unless it's really, really important.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we live in a tiny urban lot, but I walk far enough from my back door that I'm like, now I'm doing this other thing. I can't see the dishes.
You don't quick do a little laundry.
I can't hear the dryer stop, right?
Is that a
Was she?
Casey Waite?
Casey Waite. Yeah.
You
yeah.
asked.
I am obsessed with all the Mary the Tower research from Elizabeth Schrader and a lot of apocryphal writings, but several of my pals have this print. So
Yes.
Shout out.
It's
Everyone
happy.
look up Casey Waite. She's on sabbatical right now, but I'm sure would love to still sell you her art. I coach her.
Yeah. Dawn, do you know, did she get a Lilly grant going
she
on?
did. Yeah, I
did.
coach a lot of people to get Lilly grants, and then they
Yes.
get
Good
them.
for
They don't
you.
always. I can't guarantee it.
yeah.
Not the point of this podcast, but I have a lot of openings this summer because I got a lot of people sabbaticals, and now
Yes.
Good
And
for
you work
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's magic.
Yeah.
it's magic. Yeah, it is so fun.
Yeah.
So-
it is, because we're in Minnesota, I have to ask, is it heated?
What an important question. Okay, so it has like the thinnest layer of insulation, but I had this little heater
Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
in here,
Mhm.
and there's quilts out here in the winter. So I would say it's more 3-season, but I have been known to be out here on the more friendly days in the winter as well.
You know, I
Yeah.
just learned that the Mall of America is not heated.
What?
Oh my gosh, it's its own ecosystem.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's its own ecosystem. I just
I
learned
think
this,
about
like,
it every time I'm in there. Like the way that kids are
Yes.
sweating on these rides in
That's
Nick
what's heating it.
Universe and people walking around. Yes, yes.
It's
Isn't it
insanity to me.
bonkers?
Because
I
I've
love
been
it.
in the Mall of America like the day after Christmas and it's 40 below and you
Yeah.
go in and you take your coat off. It's that
Yeah.
warm.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So just all the people are keeping it
There,
warm.
something is on the roof also
Ah.
gathering some heat, but it's not
Yeah.
like heat the way
Yeah.
everything else is heated.
Wow.
Yeah. Just the square footage of it is big enough for it to be its own ecosystem, and you would
Ecosystem.
not be able to override it with
With
any
heat.
serious.
Okay, so that's a tangent,
great?
but
Yeah.
That is an important.
it's
tangent.
and it's local
Yeah.
to you.
It's so
Yes.
local.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. A prop. I have all
You
of
have a
your
prop?
books, but there's Ordinary Blessings right there.
That
That's a
little
favorite.
nugget. Thank you for featuring that in Consecrate. That was
Oh.
a gift, not knowing how to do any publicity and marketing when I was
Mm-hmm.
so new in this, and to have you pick that up and say, hey, we want to share this with people was really cool.
Oh, it was really fun. And it's the perfect size because I'm always looking for books that are smaller and lighter. And it's just a beautiful book, too. I use this so often, starting worship or as a blessing to get us started for the day. So, could you tell us a little bit about your journey with writing? Have you always been a writer from early on?
I have always been a writer. I've always had more words than I need. I'm a chatty Cathy. I'm an oversharer. I'm preacher. I'm an oldest child and bossy sister and capital M mom. So there's been a lot of words just at the ready all along. I was a voracious reader until I had postpartum anxiety and depression with my firstborn. I felt like I'll never get lost in a novel again. I don't know where my attention span went. I don't know where my desire to dive into a story went. I was worried that I would never finish a book again. And that's when I started reading a lot more poetry. I could read a poem in the morning while I was nursing before anybody else was up. I could read it 2 or 3 times. I could sit there and think about it. I could take a line or a phrase from it and bring it with me all day long and then read it again at the end of the day and see how it was different and changed. And it was my lifeline to books and the written word when I felt like I can't imagine characters or follow nonfiction facts. So I started reading aggressive amount of poetry. And then I never stopped. It just felt like this sweet treat every day. And I was just spending more time in poetry. And it was definitely giving me a lens for seeing and being in the world that impacted my preaching, but it needed another outlet besides preaching. And any parish pastor, any chaplain, anybody in a helping profession knows that you have your tool or your book or your thing that you're supposed to do, and you get into an actual context and you're like, this isn't gonna fly. This is super impersonal, or this has too many 5-syllable churchy words, or I don't know what to do here, but it's not this thing that has been prescribed, and so I'm going to do something else. So many of us have written blessings or have prayed extemporaneously or have offered up poetry to complement preaching. And I started doing it often enough that my colleagues heard that I was willing to write on a certain subject if you needed. I was very motivated by the practicality of this could go to good use right away. When I pitched the book that came out right after Ordinary Blessings, Speak It Plain, it was actually one pitch. I had a lot of the Ordinary Blessings in there and a lot of Speak It Plain in there. And the editors at Fortress Press were smart to say, this is two different audiences. Like normal people would read some of these, not just like super churchy people, which I appreciated. So Lisa Kloss helped peel them apart and helped me imagine two different audiences while I worked on those simultaneously and then rounded them out into fuller, deeper tables of content. But a lot of them were already written and had already been in the world and had already gone to use. And then it was so fun to see that it could speak to somebody else in a different way. And so the requests kept coming, and that made it easy to keep writing, knowing that somebody could use it right now.
Yeah, it's funny now thinking about how over the years since I first got this, is this the one that has the blessing for cleaning out your office? Yeah.
For packing up your
packing
office,
up your
for sure.
office, yeah.
To leave a job.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote that for a friend who was packing up his office. He had been an associate pastor at my home congregation. I got to go and like aggressively read it at him because he was just in his feels. And then we went out for whiskey afterwards. He went to his next call, and when one of his colleagues was packing up her office, he read it at her. So it's so fun to see how they become hand-me-downs or hand-me-arounds too.
Yeah, I remember it just spoke to me so much when I was packing up for my last call. And then I remember sharing for graduation with a friend when her boys were graduating. Do most of these have a story that goes with them? Do you remember?
A lot of them do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that, yes, in Ordinary Blessings in the first book, a lot of them have a story. Ordinary Blessings for Parents, I wrote that during deep COVID time. So there was always one too many kids in the room with me. Well, right. Like I didn't have my spot at the public library anymore.
Yeah.
I was writing it in the midst of actual family life, which just makes that collection really visceral for me. And there was a lot of nostalgia and grief about the things I was writing for past me. Like I'm past that stage now. Boy, I could have used this articulated clearly for me. And to be able to do that for somebody else is a privilege. I didn't think that I would be able to come up with enough blessings for a Christmas season book, but the team at Broadleaf was convinced that there were enough blessings out there for it. So I asked them to help me with a table of contents, and then I got to hear their stories behind why they wanted some of those, and I crowdsourced the heck out of that book. And so those are less personal, but like conjure individuals and stories in my mind of people being like, this deserves a blessing, this deserves a word, this needs a moment. Just knowing that pretty much all of those were requests is cool.
Yeah, very cool. So there's been Ordinary Blessing and then Speak It Plain. And then
the other two.
Yeah.
And Ordinary Blessings, the first one came out February 2020. So I had a big, beautiful book launch party right before everything shut down. Like I remember the first time I was signing books, somebody was like, I brought pen for you to use. Please use this pen. And then she like wiped it down. I was still trying to figure out what was going on. We were all trying to figure out what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
And Speak It Plain came into the world in December 2020.
So quick.
That's such a niche collection.
Yeah.
I could have had that launch party in my living room anyway, so I just did it on Instagram.
Yeah.
But the other two got to be parties too, which was really fun.
Are you working on a book right now?
I finished a book that is coming out next spring. It's a children's book with Beaming Books called We Remember Your Baptism, and it's written in the voice of the parents or sponsors or the corporate church saying, until you remember this as your own story, we were your baptism.
Oh.
So it's like an extended blessing with gorgeous pictures, and that'll come out in the spring of 2026.
Excellent. And so like with that, then did the publishing house ask you to write this, or did you have the idea?
They did.
Okay.
I had never thought about a children's book. I said yes, but then I immediately got imposter syndrome and like tried my hand at near rhyme, and they were like, absolutely not. That's not what we asked you. Please don't do that anymore. We're just looking for you to write like you write, but it's a longer blessing.
Cool.
So it was a steep learning curve. I felt like I was bumper bowling the whole time I was in that process because I knew how to do one process and this was very different. So we'll
Yeah.
see how that comes out into the world.
Yeah, very exciting. It sounds like you've really curated these different pieces of your life and you're working on ministry and writing and you're doing it in your cool writing shed.
I'm doing it in my cool writing shed.
Yeah.
I know. If I leave my writing shed and I come have a meeting with you in person, you must be a real big deal.
The shed's doing the work.
The shed's doing the work. Yeah, I've realized working with Church Anew and Bethlehem at the same time this year, that I don't know that I can quit parish ministry because I really need a specific group of people that I have promised to love no matter what through my ordination vows. And because I've been installed in a particular place, I just feel like it's grounding, it's an anchor, it's a place to live in the cadence of the liturgical calendar. And I've found that this coaching program that we're developing, if you're also rooted in a congregation, you're not a consultant, you're a peer. This is mutual. It's accompaniment. You're learning from each other and being championed by somebody who totally gets it, but wants to meet you in conversation about the relationships and resources you need to be buoyed and to remember that you are fiercely called to this and what delights you about parish ministry.
Yeah.
So Lily grants usually want you to be discovering something. So what is the thesis statement of this?
Yeah, the thesis statement is really simple. It's that there's a correlation and causation between a clergy person's flourishing and their congregation's vitality. So it's
Okay.
really hard to be a vital congregation if your clergy person is sucking wind and
Yep.
exhausted and isolated and
Yep.
weary and near burnout, right? And so the metaphor that we use for this program is the mycelium in a root system underground. Like your ministry is out front and visible and above the surface, but what a coach does is come to accompany your roots and to remind them how to talk to each other and how to talk to other trees in the forest, to remind you if you're a fern that you don't have to be a redwood, like just be a fern and delight in being a fern. And in that practice of communication, being reminded that there are enough nutrients in this forest for everybody to have enough, and for your own root system to recognize what do I have more than enough of so that I can give it back to the whole, so that I can set it free in transport through the mycelium and then they can take it to somebody who needs it. So it's a lot of networking and matchmaking, stewarding these funds to just break down some barriers that don't need to be there and are taking way too much time and energy away from the creativity of a congregation and their pastor.
I
So-
love this because I'm coaching a church that is near the Redwood Forest that has that word in their goals for this year. I'm pretty sure it's
Really?
mycelium.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's that scientific word, but it is about the root system or fungus that is
Yeah.
connecting the trees around them, and they want to be that for the community. So I like great ideas pop up simultaneously in many places because they're great.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of our systems and leaders are starving for a theology of abundance right now, too, right? There is enough for everyone to have enough. You are God when you are being your actual self, not trying to impersonate somebody or something.
And you were called there, not a
Right.
version of you. It's you.
Yeah, it's so fun to be like, what? Like, you're their pastor. Like,
Yeah.
I see you. One of the questions that we asked recently in a rural setting in a synod, and they're all ELCA congregations. One of the goals was this conference of the synod has the most ratio of church buildings with worship services to rostered clergy. So how does working with this particular clergy person raise all the boats? How do we always ask the question, how does this serve the conference? Or what does this mean for your neighbors and your local colleagues?
Wow. Then, if our listeners are interested in that, if they're like, oh, this sounds really interesting and something I would like to know more about, is it on the Church Anew
Yes.
website?
Yes. It's the Renewing Reformation project.
Okay. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, as we think about creativity, do you like just with your own writing practice, are there certain times of day that you like to write?
Unfortunately, I'm a big night owl. So my
Oh.
favorite time to write is when my house is super quiet, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Me too.
But I also love writing under the gun. I love having a deadline coming up and just needing to go and crank some stuff out. I respond very well to firm deadlines. So if I have something that needs to get done and I need to quiet my brain, it's the middle of the night. But I'm working creativity unrelated to commerce into my day all day, every day. I'm a firm believer that under the weight of empire and in a world that wants to monetize everything, we have to find little ways to get away with something every day. And that can look a lot of different ways. I have lots of crafty hobbies and I'm a novice at a lot of different things, and I recognize that I'm also then modeling for my kids that you don't have to be excellent at something to enjoy it. I am one of the only adults in my neighborhood who does a lot of sidewalk chalk.
Awesome.
'Tis the season. I love a paint by number. I love punch needle art, making something for a friend that is incredibly niche and an inside joke. And I like when my kids want to join me in that and just forget to have a purpose or a point or an end goal. And we all stray from that. Like, no matter how we work that into our rhythm and our practice, life can get away from us. And so the artist's way is a huge way that I come back
Oh, yeah.
around. I am very good at the artist date. I take my inner artist on a lot of dates. And I can't do the artist's way all on my own. I just don't have the willpower or the discipline. But I do it together in a group with a spiritual director every 2 or 3 years.
Oh,
It
Nice.
makes a big difference.
Actually this summer, Dawn and I are going through the Artist's Way and inviting our listeners to
Good.
join us. Yeah, so,
You know, we could pretend that we invited you here to kick it off.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to be the biggest stand for this right now. To tell your listeners, I think it is near impossible and infuriating to do it by yourself. So if you are not a very disciplined Enneagram 1, find people. Find your people for this. And you're allowed to ride the full roller coaster. All of the feelings come up over the course of the 12 weeks, right?
Yeah.
The things that you love and totally vibe with that synchronicity, and the things that you're like, I hated every minute of this. I only did it twice this week just to stick it to Julia Cameron.
So good.
Yeah, when you do it with other people, you just realize there's something in here for everybody and you get to celebrate each other along the way. I remember I was in it a couple years ago and I did the first 6 weeks while I was still on sabbatical, the last 6 weeks coming back from sabbatical, hoping that would just give me a little hinge as I re-entered. And one of my pals in our Zoom group, we would meet online with our spiritual director. There were 12 of us for a half hour every week. And he decided that he was going to get his sewing machine fixed. He'd had a sewing machine for a really long time. He used to know how to sew. And this week he was going to get it fixed. And he was going to finish this Star Wars Halloween costume he had started making for himself years earlier. And you should have seen the Zoom applause, joy on everybody's face when he showed up 2 weeks later. And we're like, look at you. That stuff's meant to be shared.
Yes, that's
I
great.
believe almost everything is easier in community. So that is the example right here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was curious, what are you on the Enneagram?
I'm an 8 with a 7 wing.
Oh,
So I want to be in charge, but I'll make it fun for you.
That's good. It's a good comment.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a
excellent.
challenger. And I think that's part of the reason I have a hard time being centered and rooted predominantly in an institution and loyal to its maintenance. That's really hard for my personality. And so I have to find ways to keep my ordination vows and to love people and be in community and practicing the call to discipleship that don't have me on the hook for some stuff that kills me slowly.
So, who are some of your favorite creators?
I know you were going to ask me this, and I started thinking of like famous people or like Instagram handles to follow, but I think I just want to say my neighbors and my friends. Like when I am getting overwhelmed or feel jaded about the state of the world, I don't have to look very far to find very creative people who are different from me, especially in my neighborhood, which is like pretty crafty. And so I taken with the way that some of my neighbors' gardens explode this time of year and being able to stop and talk to them about it and appreciate what they're putting out into the world. There's 2 art galleries in my neighborhood. Going to see whatever show is there and knowing that whoever is showing art here is like local and my neighbor, and look what they're making right down the street, and then I probably get to meet them. That's amazing. And then knowing what sets my friends' hearts on fire and just championing them and celebrating them is a reminder that there's enough for everybody to have enough. Like we're not in competition. The world needs a whole lot more art.
Yes.
When that's part of my relationships with my friends and my family, I see creativity everywhere. My college roommate, one of my dearest friends, is a ceramicist. She's also a school counselor by day, but she has never stopped making pottery, and she just gave me these beautiful blue, all different colors of blue candlestick holders. And she's, you needed these a while ago, and I never got them to. Do you still need these? I was like, yes,
Oh.
this was for my Christmas book lunch years ago, but I still want them. I'm like spiritually attracted to every single one you made, and I can't wait to gift them away and tell people about your studio and what you do. Some of my favorite creatives are people that I can reach out and touch, and I can look at their stuff all the time. And instead of it being far away in a gallery or distant and that I've never met them in person, I just feel like when you see yourself as an artist and everything you do, you start to notice the artist and everybody else.
Yes.
It's plentiful in my life.
Yeah, I know that you do some coaching, but one of the things that we offer with our podcast is Dawn is a fabulous coach, and we were wondering if there's anything that you would like coaching on today.
I would love some coaching on this pivot from the school year to the summer with my youngins that have a lot of personal autonomy. Like I can GPS track all of them between a phone and 2 smartwatches. They have a lot of freedom. They're signed up for some stuff this summer. They also have a lot of independence. Need to pick up some more responsibilities for allowance this summer. But I feel like I am a mess every May and I just stumble into June. And I need
Maycember, as they say.
Maycember. It is,
Yeah.
the struggle is real. And I don't need coaching for a plan on how to structure their summer or how to calendar. Like, I need coaching on how I'm going to show up in the ways that I can control my anxiety, my expectations, and the way that I communicate with them. As we're going through the shift that is stressful for me as a parent, very exciting for them. What kid doesn't love the last week of school?
So fun.
Like, they're all super pumped. I'm nervous. I like when they're gone all day. Need a little bit of coaching on how I am going to manage myself for the next couple weeks.
You mentioned poetry grounding you at one stage. Are we going to brainstorm
Yeah.
other things?
No, that's a good one.
Okay.
And maybe I need a certain genre for this season that is specific to this season of chaos and transition.
Ooh, what would that be?
Or maybe there's a certain author I need to find. I just stumble around with that and find some mantras for my breath that way. I like that a lot.
You know who talks to this isn't a poet. Jen Hatmaker addresses this kind of thing a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, she does.
if you start Googling her and then go down a rabbit trail toward poets, I feel like you're going to get me.
I think you're right. And I should just look up. I know she's got some good stuff that she posts every year because people need to hear it every year. I should look up her Substack and just visit some of her
and
her hot tips.
Yep, the people who are just real.
The most helpful thing a friend's therapist ever said that was then reported to me, that was more helpful than almost anything my own therapist has ever said to me, that it seems like you've spent a lot of time and energy being surprised while other people are hitting their mark.
Like, meaning your kids are hitting their mark?
Yeah. So, like, to apply that here. So in that situation, it was like having a really rough Thanksgiving dinner. It sounds like you've been spending a lot of time and energy being surprised that everybody showed up the way they always show up.
You wanted something different for it.
And I don't want to hit my mark this spring and early summer. I don't want to be like tightly wound and overwhelmed and kind of the nagging presence in the midst of one of the sweetest, yummiest parts of year. They will hit their mark. They will forget stuff. They will sleep too late. They will forget, what do I need so that I'm not surprised / bitter?
Expect what you know they'll do. That's the opposite of being surprised. Build in them not washing their breakfast dishes into your day so that it's not an annoyance. You're like, okay, we're still learning that.
We're still learning this. That is a good mantra. We're still learning this.
I have a 2-year-old. I'm all about it.
We're still learning this. Yeah, because there's such big kids with like complex interests and abilities one minute, and the next minute, I'm like, you have oatmeal for brains.
They're just full-on children every once in a while.
We're still learning this. Yeah.
Is it Shauna Nyquist?
Oh.
Has something in that realm?
Yeah.
She's Googleable.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're learning to not hit
I'm
your
learning.
mark.
Yeah, that is a royal we for sure.
Yeah,
We're still learning.
Right. And so your kids are learning and you're learning how you want to show up for tween children.
Yes.
We're all learning.
Yeah. My daughters are going to middle school next year and my son is going to high school next year. So it's a big pivot. None of them want to think about that right now, but it really does start right now. We have 5th grade recognition next week and then 8th grade promotion.
So the poetry grounds you, the artist state.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Does it make sense to have twice as many artist dates in the next 2 weeks?
It's a really good idea.
Is that even possible?
To treat myself to a little luxury when I'm holding all of this lightly. A little, you're doing it. You drop some of it, but you're getting some of it. You're learning.
What if we
Good job,
think
buddy.
your mental state is the most important thing? Your spiritual groundedness is the most important thing. So taking care of that is the top priority. It's not extra.
And like I said with the thesis for this coaching model, there is a correlation and causation between my flourishing and my fidelity.
Right. Not just churches. Yes.
It's not just churches, it's systems, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dawn. All right, I'm going to...
Yeah, I don't even have to ask you, what will you do in the next
You don't
2
even have to
weeks?
ask me. So I have my little list here.
Okay.
And I am going to think about a particular genre of poetry or a poet that I want to keep really near me for the next month. And I love that mantra, we are still learning, and that's a royal we. And I'm going to think about adding extra artist dates and little luxuries to keep holding all of this lightly and remembering to be gentle with myself. Again, like the cereal bowls, they won't be rinsed out right after breakfast.
No.
But maybe by noon, maybe by lunch at some point.
Yeah.
Right?
How will we know this was successful?
We will know this is successful because I will have caught some of their early summer magic instead of snuffing it out in them. I'll be excited that it's June,
Yeah.
and that would be measurable.
Awesome. I love this. I'm excited for you.
Thank you for that coaching. That's so good.
You're welcome.
One more question. I was thinking about how we have so many listeners who are creative people, but it's a goal for a lot of people to write a book. You've got 4 out in the world, almost 5. Do you have any advice for someone who is hoping to publish a book?
Yeah, I mean, you need an editor who can tell you the truth and you can hear the truth. And you need cloud of witnesses. Every book has a launch team. The author needs to go and ask their people who have some relationship to the topic and other authors just to fangirl out on what you made. And I think we all need that in life anyway. A book is such a roller coaster ride that can feel like dying and failure along the way several times. That my dear friend Ellie Rocher just reminded me that just when you start to be, they send you like an author questionnaire where like you need to be like, list all of your TV and radio appearances in the last year. And you're like, I have nothing for this survey. I barely wrote this book that my mom might read. Settle down questionnaire. Right when you're like willing to throw it all away and you're like, this is too frustrating and I'm feeling disconnected from this project, that's when your endorsements start to roll in and you get to see what your colleagues are writing about what you made. It buoys you. There's this dance all along that feels pretty sacred and important, but the secret sauce of writing a proposal and then signing a contract and going on that whole journey is having people who are going to cheer you on. And some of them need to be your biggest fans, even if what you make isn't very good. And some of them need to be able to tell you the truth. And all of them need to be able to show up like what you made matters in the world. When you have that crew, it's a lot more fun. And the good stuff is so much easier to savor and notice. And the hard stuff falls away. So you need your cloud of witnesses. I think that's the most important thing. Whether your journey to publication is swift or not, you need your people.
Yeah, I like that. So it segues into it would be a great practice to join us doing the Artist's Way this summer.
Yes.
Yes. That could be your cloud of witnesses for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. But I'm so thankful you could spend this time with us.
I love talking about creativity.
Oh,
I think
good.
it's a huge part of our identity, as the name of your podcast would suggest. And it's also, we're built being creative in community with other people. And so we need to talk about it so people can recognize if they're feeling isolated or lonely, or the reason they aren't being creative is because they don't know who to go be creative with. I often find myself thinking about how the root of the word amateur just means you do it for the love of it, right? So we need more people who are doing stuff for the love of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. So nice meeting you.
So nice to meet you. Thanks for having
fun.
me. Could carry you too. Many thanks to your listeners as well.
Thank you for joining us for Created Creative.
We're so glad that you could join us. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook and tell your friends. Leave a great review as well. We would love that.
And join us to do the Artist's Way this summer.
And go create something.
Go create something.